guys, welcome back. So today we're going to do an unboxing video. So we're going to do a fake unboxing and we're going to do a real unboxing because I already opened this package and I didn't open this package. So this is all stuff that's going to be for this car. If you guys know what I'm doing, this is the engine that's going in the car. I did already have a 5.3 from a Silverado in it. Took that out. It was an iron block 5.3. So I'm putting a Gen 4 aluminum block 5.3 in it. I believe it's an LC9, so that's the one that's going to go back in. But I originally did the car. It was kind of like a budget build and did everything as cheap as I could. The whole swap cost about $2,800, and kind of switching gears, changing directions, and we're going to make it a little bit nicer, a little bit more reliable. Hopefully the goal for the summer is a lot of seat time and nothing breaks. We also want to go for some comfort, reliability, have air conditioning, and do twin turbos. So that is the idea behind this whole shebang. So what we're going to do is I'm going to open some stuff. Some of you guys, I showed it on the A21 Bravo Facebook page. The link is in the description there if you guys want to check that out, and we can hang out a little bit more. So you know what's in the box already, but we're going to go through it. And I'll give you guys a hint where the stuff is from. LOJ. So I'm probably actually just going to flip this thing on the ground. There's a bunch of shit in here. Alright, so first thing that we got is a harness. And if you guys know me, you know I love doing my own wiring. I'm not afraid of wiring at all. I have several LS wiring harness videos. I actually did one specifically for this car. But the big thing here is, I talked about it in my other wiring video and a couple other previous videos, is the CAN bus issue. So I haven't found like a cheap or a budget way to really do the CAN bus translation, which is, this harness comes with a CAN bus translator. So if you're not familiar with CAN bus is basically it's sending a signal over two different wires that controls everything in the car. So old systems used to have a positive and a negative, and power basically would go directly to every single component. What this does is it runs everything over two wires. It sends a signal to that component. If the component wants to receive the signal, then it will function. So it's a little complicated. There's a lot of programming and stuff that has to go into it. And this harness will do it. This harness will also run the air conditioning, and it will completely integrate all of the Nissan components with the LS components. So we'll be able to run the E38 computer, the factory Nissan power steering pump, air conditioning, alternator, and all of the gauges and everything will work as normal, because the swap before, none of that stuff worked. The tach didn't work. Coolant temp sensor didn't work. None of the climate control would work. So it was a basic, cheap running and driving swap, but we're focusing on something different, so that's what this is. But let me explain myself. So like I said, comfort, reliability, seat time, hopefully no issues, and resale value. So I was able to do the swap very cheap, very cheap. But when you do it that way, you always kind of have these elements of the vehicle is specific for me. So we are also thinking, my wife and I are also thinking, because this is our together project, resale value like a year or 2 years from now. Nobody's going to want to buy this like cheap swap that just kind of makes it drive. They're going to want to buy something that's a little bit nicer. So we're looking at resale down the road. Along with the harness, this is where you kind of get into a little bit of snowball when you buy stuff. So I was really started to look at the harness because of the CAN bus integration and the air conditioning. So when you get into that, then you're looking at the accessory drive, because the accessory drive also runs the air conditioning with the LOJ kit, with the LOJ wiring harness, which uses the factory power steering pump, which was using before the factory Nissan power steering pump. I made my own accessory drive, but I was using a truck alternator from the Silverado, so I kind of made all that stuff work. but basically wanted to use those are going to work with the harness to get the air conditioning to work. So CAN bus and air conditioning leads you into the accessory drive. Alrighty, here we go. So we got a box. I'm not going to tell you what's inside here, but if you guys are paying attention, you'll know exactly what's inside here. Stickers. That's what's in here. So this is all of the components. Holy crap. This is all like vacuum sealed and stuff together. This is pretty cool. Instructions, good thing. Hopefully there's a lot of pictures because I don't know how to read good, but so this is all the components that are needed to run the LOJ accessory drive. It runs the LSA water pump. It runs the Nissan power steering pump, Nissan alternator, Nissan air conditioning compressor, in the factory locations on the GM LS engine in the car. So that's how this led into this. And this should be just like a nice bolt-on, don't have to worry about it. Air conditioning, everything works. So that's how we got into here. And I really like how this is packaged, how every single component, look at this. Every component is in its own separate little vacuum sealed package. This is really cool. I like this. Comes with the belt, air conditioning belt, serpentine belt, tensioners, and this is all set up for the air conditioning. So it doesn't seem like a lot, but in my brain there's a lot of value there, and that's what we're doing. Okay, so let's snowball a little more, guys. Let's snowball this a little bit more. So then the harness, let's back up a little bit. So when I did the car originally, and a lot of you guys know, and you're probably like frustrated and pissed off because I'm not going to rebuild my oil pan. When I did this swap, I maintained the factory drive shaft length, transmission mounting point for the shifter. Everything was in the stock location. I moved the engine forward. I built my own mounts, and in order to do that, I needed to build my own oil pan. So I bought a TIG welder instead of buying an expensive kit, which is kind of what I did now here. I bought a TIG welder instead at the time because I wanted a TIG welder. I wanted an excuse to learn how to TIG weld and buy a TIG welder, so it was like perfect opportunity. So I did that, and that's actually the oil pan that's hanging on this engine. I'll show you guys that. So this oil pan that's hanging off the bottom of this engine, that's actually the one that I built. So I bought the TIG welder, built the whole oil pan. It did leak a little bit on the backside because it warped, because I had a little too much heat input and it warped the flange a little bit. So it did leak, but not too bad. I was able to fix it with some RTV and it was okay. But the air conditioning kind of leads you into shifting the engine backwards so you can use the factory air conditioning lines that are on the car already. So with the engine extended out, this kit is going to move my engine back about 4 inches compared to where I had it before, which should help with some weight distribution, but I wasn't really too worried about that. Everything, in my opinion, seemed like it was pretty good. But the factory air conditioning lines, I want to use the factory AC lines and the factory condenser. In order to do that, I need to move the engine back, and I can use the factory radiator support with the AC condenser and see how this is all kind of tying itself together and starting to make sense. It does for me, hopefully it does for you guys. So shifting it back, I can maintain everything completely as factory with the wiring and this kit. However, when I move the engine back, the oil pan that I built isn't going to work, and the mounts that I had aren't going to work. So I could have built a new pan. I could have built the new mounts. I've built engine mounts quite a bit, and honestly the mounts probably would have been the easiest part over building another pan. But at the time I was just like, well, why not? So that's where we get into this little guy right here. Oil pan. I believe this is a stamped steel oil pan. Has the drain, has the dipstick hole. It has some baffles on the inside of it. So this thing is actually really nice, a lot nicer than what I would have built. And honestly, like I said, the whole reliability thing, I would be perfectly fine driving around with that oil pan, knowing the risk of the warped flange and the leaking and whatever. But if I want to sell this thing a year from now, I don't want the owner who's going to get it or to have any problems with it, and I don't want to have any problems with it when I'm driving around this year. So the truck is we're going to push it and break it project, and hopefully this is going to be the seat time project. So along with that, it does come with the gasket for the oil pan. Does come with the orb to AN fitting that goes on the oil pump section for the feed, because you have to have a remote oil cooler. So you can buy the remote oil, or not oil cooler, oil filter, remote oil filter. So I'm going to reuse the remote oil filter that I built. That should work perfectly fine. So I didn't buy the LOJ remote oil filter stuff. But we got some mounts. So again, overall, when you're looking at like this leads into this, which leads into this, which I didn't really want to deal with. And then this was like probably the cheapest thing out of the whole bunch. So just went ahead and did that. Less of a headache. I'll be able to get the stuff in really quick. So also got the transmission mount. And then they throw in just like a regular GM. Looks like a GM mount. The oil dipstick tube, the pickup tube, dipstick tube, which is pretty nice and threads right into the oil pan. And a whole bunch of bolts. So all of the bolts that are going to come with the kit. So I'm guessing these are the engine mount bolts. There should be 8 of those in there. And then these are probably the oil pan bolts. So that's pretty much that. Yep, there was one there. I only counted 7, so I was assuming that these were the engine mount bolts. There you go. So that's all that. And probably the best part of the kit is they come with a whole bunch of these things. So you can pop them, give them to the kids, and then have a really nice day. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. I kind of want to just give you an idea of where my head is at on this. So did the budget build, kind of changing directions, almost like Project Unfair Lady version 2. I just showed you 4, but we're doing version 2. And comfort with the air conditioning and everything, reliability, don't want to have to deal with the possible oil leaking issues, especially we want to do like drag racing, definitely. We want to maybe try to do some drifting events. And that oil pan, I didn't really have a solid baffle system in it. So it may have worked for just some cruising and maybe a couple hard pulls, but I'd really question, it's more so my ability, because that was my first time TIG welding too. So I feel successful in building the thing, but is it going to be built for performance and not going to cause us any problems down the road? So that's about it. If you got any questions, leave it in the comments. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.